Hello, I am Alec Muhoho, a self-esteem coach and attitude trainer. Today we are going to talk about how to overcome the fear of failure and also the fear of rejection. What is fear? Fear is an unpleasant feeling that you and I can relate to. That feeling is meant to handle any given threat that comes along our lives. That threat could be real or not real. Now, how we feel the fear and we either flee from what we are threatened about or we confront it. Most people go for the option of running away from what they are afraid of, and that makes matters worse. Psychologists all over the world agree that there are two fears that babies are born with: the fear of falling down and the fear of loud noise. If you have a baby, you will notice that they fear a loud voice or loud sounds wherever they are. Now, the other fears that we acquire over our lifetime comes as it's all learned. We learn our fears from our upbringing, from our parents. We learn some fears from the schools we have gone to. We also learn some fears from our peers. We also learn fears from the media. What many people don't realize is that fear holds us back from knowing ourselves and also maximizing our potential. Today we are simply going to talk about the fear of failure and also the fear of rejection. We also have to learn how to overcome these two fears. Let's begin with the fear of failure. Brian Tracy once said that the fear of failure is the actual cause of failure. When you are growing up in a family, as a child, you loved learning different things. You learned holding cups, you learned tying shoelaces, you learned many things. But maybe you were not lucky, you had very critical parents, and they instilled fear in you for being careless. You went to school, instead of being taught how to learn and to learn the lessons, you were actually taught to pass exams. And if you are not passing exams, it definitely instilled a lot of fear in you. Now, the real world outside, the more chances for you to succeed, you have to fail many times before you succeed. Going back to your childhood, the reason majority of us are able to walk well is because we fail many times before we learned how to walk. Just imagine if you are to see a parent telling his or her child, I'll only allow you to fail 5 times, and if you continue failing after the 5th time, stop trying to walk. Many of us will not be walking today. However, the society that we live in puts a lot of pressure that we must succeed from the beginning at all cost. Remember what Brian Tracy said, that the fear of failure is the actual cause of failure. When you go for an exam and you anticipate how the exam will be difficult, you anticipate how you may fail, most likely you are going to fail. Job in the Bible said, what I feared fell upon me. Even in the Bible, they always say, fear not. The word fear not has been repeated 365 times, meaning that the year 2020 For the next 365 days, you must remind yourself, fear not. When you have too much fear of failure, you are likely not going to perform well. Even though there are chances that sometimes you may perform well, you are not going to sustain that success. Remember that fear of failure has held many people back. Now, I'm not encouraging mediocre behavior. Many people have books inside them, but they have failed to write books because they imagine that they are not going to write well. Many people have failed to produce even YouTube programs because they are imagining that people are going to laugh at them, they will appear foolish. I know of somebody many years ago composed so many songs. She sang beautiful songs, but she has never recorded them up to now because of fear of failure or fear of rejection, which I'll talk more about later. So, what we need to realize is that the fear of failure is the actual cause of failure. How are we going to reduce the fear of failure so that we can perform well? Failure is not bad. In fact, it's honorable to fail. What is not honorable is to fail to try. If you try something and it does not work out, then try again. If it doesn't work out again, try again. Leslie Brown said something very beautiful. He said that if there is anything worth doing, begin it poorly. If there is anything worth doing, begin it poorly until you get it right. Mark the word until. So, if you want to be an actor, go and practice, and if you're not doing well, you fail in terms of cramming your scripts or the story to fail to flow, keep on trying until you get it right. Don't fear to fail, but fear not to try. Mark Twain once said that 20 years from now, you regret the things you did not do rather than the things you did. Many people in their deathbed always regret the things they could have done when they were young. Many young people waste a lot of precious time fearing failure because failure has a bad buzzword. I want to encourage you, one of the ways to overcome the fear of failure, get a book by John Maxwell known as Failing Forward. Read that book and you'll see the tips that you'll learn how to fail forward into success. Just look at it this way. A rocket to reach its target misses its target 3,000 times, yet it reaches to the moon. How did it happen? A rocket has its self-mechanism of correcting itself whenever it goes off course. Whenever it goes off course, it's reminded that you have gone 1 degree off course, it goes back. 1 degree east, it goes back. 1 degree west, it goes back. So until it reaches to the moon. Whenever you are doing something, you are going to make mistakes. The fear of failure, the signs of fear of failure are example of perfectionist or procrastination. You have a perfectionist attitude that whatever I have to do has to be perfect the very first time. That is a fast way of failing. In fact, it's mostly the most effective way of failing. So if you want to reduce your failures, reduce your fears of that failure. In fact, somebody rightly said that there is no failure. It is learning. Whenever you fail, there is success and learning, not success and failure. Shakespeare once said that Successful people are ex-losers who refuse to give up. So if you have failed an exam, if you have failed in a relationship, if you have failed in a business, if you have gone bankrupt, develop resilience skills within yourself. Without resilience, you cannot succeed in life. Resilience simply means the ability to recover from any setback quickly. I deliberately remove the word quickly because people recover in different times. Though the definition says that the resilience is the ability to recover quickly. Recover from what? Recover from any setback. Whenever you face a setback, always remind yourself in your mind that this setback is a setup for a comeback. It doesn't matter how many times you fall down. In fact, it is said, fall down 7th time and rise up the 8th time. So, am I encouraging you to fail? Yes, I'm encouraging you to remove the word failure and put learning. Yes, I encourage you to learn. Now, when you figure out that failing is learning, then you'll not fear it and you'll do what is necessary. If you are a student in school and you invest a lot of your time worrying about exams, then you're not going to have time to study. And even if you study for many hours, for long hours, you'll not be effective in answering questions in your exams because your mind is so engrossed about the fear of failing. Well, let's talk about relationships. Many people don't know this, that many young people are suffering from depression. And most of their depression is related to the fear of failure and the fear of rejection. The fear of failure of exams, the fear of failure of getting good jobs, the fear of failure of how they will succeed in life. We'll talk more about youths in the topic of overcoming the fear of rejection. So, briefly, the fear of failure, always remember that failure is not bad. What is bad is how you term it. So, spin the word of failure into learning. Take life as an avenue of learning. If you look at life as a learner, then everything will be fine. As I recap on the subject of fear of failure, I want to remind you that you and I are not perfect and we will never be perfect. So a perfectionist attitude will make you remain a failure for the rest of your life. Instead, develop a habit of taking action and improving yourself every single day that you live. That's when you'll be able to overcome the fear of failure. The fear of rejection. The fear of rejection is perhaps a most serious fear that many people go through. Let me talk about people who do selling and marketing. Selling and marketing is perhaps the best profession that I know of, but many people avoid it because the degree of rejection is very high. You must be ready to be rejected several times in the field of selling and marketing for you to be successful. Take, for example, a soldier. If you are a soldier and you are afraid of getting a casualty or possibility of dying in a war, you are not likely to stay in the army for long. Therefore, for sales and marketing, the single something you have to embrace is being rejected. For example, you can go deliberately that if I'm rejected by 10 people a day, at least I'll get 2. It's a numbers game. The average you go for the average. The more I try, the more I am likely to succeed. I want to give you sad news that whether you like it or not in life, you'll be rejected by some people. The earlier you learn about that, the better. Again, never take rejection personal. Today, people may reject you. 5 years down the road, they will accept you. You may have a cause that you stand for and people ridicule you, but later on, when they see that you're consistent, they will now accept you. Rejection is a feeling that you are not wanted, especially by people you admire or people you are close to. People sometimes behave badly in order to get attention. Take for an example, a parent, you could be a mother, you have children. One child is well behaved, and then another child behaves badly. You'll find out that child who behaves badly, you are most likely to say, "You, why are you throwing cups around?" Stupid things of that sort. But that child who behaved well, you don't even praise them. So because that child who is behaving well, you doesn't cause commotion. So sometimes people cause commotion so that they can get attention, even though that attention is that you scream at them. Rejection is a strong word, but let's look at it this way. I want to encourage you that whenever you feel rejected, at the back of your mind, feel accepted for your own good. It sounds funny when I say this. For example, there are many young ladies around the world have tried one relationship to another and they are not getting a serious spouse, and they feel very strong rejection in themselves, and they wonder whether they will remain single for the rest of their lives. If they want to get out of that quagmire, they must now decide that, number one, God loves me. Number two, I love myself. Because if God loves you, God has not rejected you, and you love yourself and you don't reject yourself, definitely you'll attract the right people into your life. But if you feel rejected, you are most likely going to behave in a very, very queer manner to get attention. You'll always try to do things in a desperate way to get people to love you, and you can't force people to love you. Now, to understand how to overcome rejection, we should remember that we cannot force people to accept us. Let me give you a story that will give you a clue of how to overcome the fear of rejection. Once upon a time, there was an argument between the sun and the wind. They were discussing who is stronger than the other. They discussed almost the whole day. I'm stronger than you, I'm stronger than you. All of a sudden, they saw a man passing by wearing a coat. Wow! They said, now this is our time to show who is stronger. The sun told the wind, okay, you try. The wind really hit the man. The man was falling, but he held his coat and almost somersaulting. You can imagine the wind, wah, wah. You know, it was like a hurricane, you can imagine. But the man held his coat firmly. So the wind gave up and said, now the sun, it is your time to come. And the sun smiled. As you know, the sun smiles slowly, and the man relaxed. And after the man relaxed, he started sweating, and he removed his coat. The message of that story is you cannot and you should never force people to accept you. Because if you force them to accept you, that's where rejection will remain. So make sure that, remember, you're accepted by God. Remember, you're accepted by train yourself to accept yourself, who you are. Obviously, when you meet people who reject you, don't take it personal. Remember that these people could have had a bad day. It's nothing against you. And don't over engross yourself that I have to be perfect, I have to be loved, I have to be noticed, I have to... No. People have their own problems. They don't even know that you exist. So I encourage all of you to remember the only way that we can overcome the fear of rejection is to accept ourselves. Recap. Overcoming the fear of failure will help us to overcome failure in the long run. Overcoming the fear of rejection will help us to get accepted. And we cannot use force. Thank you.